These four topics are the most controversial because they hit close to home quite literally, and many of us have either made these mistakes and have had to confront some of these decisions. I'm a financial advisor. I've managed over $140 million in my career, and I've written best-selling books. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on each of these and why some of these topics can fit for you or don't fit for you. And I'm going to start off with an honorable mention. It's Bitcoin. Just Bitcoin in and of itself is a very controversial topic in some circles. And the reason is, I think we can be honest, in 2026, it just does not make a ton of sense. I can do a whole separate video on that, and that's why it's in an honorable mention section. The primary reason as to why Bitcoin took off, especially in 2017 and in 2020, is because society at that point in time didn't have any alternate route for their money to take off and have something to invest in that way. Now they have sports betting. Now they have these event contracts. They have moved away from Bitcoin. Now that Bitcoin is more centralized because the government is now investing in it. Now it is more regulated. It doesn't have the case that it used to. That is why it is not as attractive as what it used to be, and it's why it's well below 80,000 or 65,000, whatever it is at the time that you're watching it. Does it mean that Bitcoin is absolutely trash? You can't invest in it ever again? No, but I don't think that it is what they told us that it was. Now that was just an honorable mention. Let's go ahead and get into my main topic today. The first one is term insurance versus permanent insurance, or you can also say whole life. There are different versions of what we call permanent insurance. These are insurance policies, life insurance policies for the most part, and you are supposed to have permanently until you up out of here. And especially if you are on Threads or still on X, aka Twitter, these people will go back and forth with you all day around why you should absolutely have one or the other. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. The majority of people who argue you up and down why you should have a whole life policy or any complicated insurance policy are those who sell life insurance. That's it. That is it. The people who really go into a 10 or 15 minute rant, honestly a 2-minute rant on why you should have some sort of permanent life insurance policy, a whole life, an IUL, or say that life insurance is some sort of investment, they are 95% of the time going to try and sell you that policy, right? 97% of the time you should have a term life insurance policy. What that is something that says, hey, for 20 years you need this much coverage, and after that point in time it expires and you don't need it anymore. The whole purpose of that is because over that 20 years you should be investing, you should be saving, and that coverage that you need should expire. For example, I own a home, right? The home, I think we bought it because houses were expensive and still are. It's like $400,000. Over that time, right, I should be paying down that mortgage. I'm not going to need that coverage at that point. In 20 years, I should have paid off the vast majority of it. I'm not going to need $400,000 in coverage, right? Because the mortgage will be gone. My kids should be out of college at that point in time. What am I need that coverage for at that point, right? At least not that much, right? I should need much less in 20 years than what I need today if something were to happen to me. That is the entire point. I don't need permanent coverage. However, what about that 5% of people? There are very, very niche cases in which you would need permanent insurance. Those cases are if you have a kid with special needs. You might need some version of whole life insurance policies. If you are someone who has high income and you've already maxed out of your 401k, you've already done all the things you can in terms of I maxed out my 401k, I've already done all my Roth IRA stuff, or my income is too high for a Roth IRA. I've checked off all those boxes. I don't have nothing else to do and I have this extra money. Okay, fine, right? Those things make sense. Or if you are a business owner and you have a partner, that also makes sense, because if I'm in a partnership and we have two business owners and we are both important and something happens to business owner B, well, if that person is gone, that insurance policy ensures that the business can still run and vice versa. So we have insurance policies on each other. Those are the very, very niche cases, but there are a whole bunch of people who are maxing out their 401ks and their IRAs and have enough in cash savings and putting enough money in their brokerage accounts and checking all of those boxes. There are a ton of people who have businesses with partners, in which case they need those things. That's why I said only 5%. So again, 95% of people should just do the term insurance and go on about their business. The next topic is you versus the kids. Is you versus the kids, because there are parents, and I'm a parent myself, obviously. You always can see my daughter in the intro of the videos. Is should you be prioritizing you, yourself, your investments, or should you be prioritizing their college, their investments, and the things that they need? It should be you. It should be you. Forget them kids. Not forget them 100%, but no, you should absolutely be prioritizing you, yourself, and your investments. I'm fine with obviously setting them up with the 529 plan. Obviously setting them up with a savings account and investment account. That's what I did the day my kids were born. However, what I'm not going to do is sacrifice my own retirement, my own savings, and my own financial security to front load everything for them, because what that does is then put the burden on them. That is what is going to happen. Where when they are in their 30s, they are in their 40s, you, the parent, are going to have to move in with them. They're not going to be able to move on with their lives because you are like, hey, you know, mom's gonna have to move in. They're trying to get married. They're trying to have their own grandkids. And now they are taking care of you. Their expenses are now going to have to be split between their own kids, themselves, and then taking care of your expenses because you weren't able to prioritize yourselves. They have their own lives to continue to save on your own, and you are able to break that cycle if you are taking care of yourself. Me and my wife have had this conversation. I know it can be a difficult conversation, which is why it is in this video to begin with, right? The most controversial topics in personal finance. But you gotta put on your own seatbelt. You gotta put on your own mask first. Because if you are not stable as a parent, those things are going to more than likely translate and fall over as a domino effect onto those kids. So do what you have to do to keep the lights on. Do what you have to do to maintain and create a stable savings, retirement account, investing account. And if you have things left over, then pass those things on to your kids. If nothing else, as you are doing those things, teach those kids those habits. Teach those kids those investing traits, those savings traits. For me, my parents had a savings account for me, and it, you know, I think maybe a few $1,000s. And I say a few, I mean, it was less than $5,000. Okay, so I had, you know, going off to college, maybe $2,000 or $3,000 plus the money that I saved working at Quick Trip, just a gas station. And what I didn't know was how to budget, because my parents did not invest in the stock market. We didn't know what the stock market really was at that point in time. I had to teach my parents what the stock market was after interning in 2010. And what I learned, though, because my parents were doing the best of taking care of themselves and just keeping the lights on, was, hey, this is what bills are. This is how we separate and save for certain things. Hey, y'all want to go to Six Flags in Dallas? Here's what we're going to do every single month, and we're going to put pennies in the jar. We're going to save our $5 bills, whatever it is, so we can budget for things and have that delayed satisfaction, or delayed gratification rather, to understand what it's like to save for a long-term goal. If I had nothing else, at least I knew what those habits look like, and they were transparent in that. So it's not like you're starving your kid, right? It's not like you're giving your kids nothing. You are at least transferring those habits, and those habits are the things that they can take, those skills are the things that they can take to the next level as they start to get their first job, right? As opposed to, hey, mom and dad gave me the greatest head start, I've got a few $1,000s, and then the next thing you know, they are also trying to split their money 3 ways, and the cycle just continues over and over and over again, because you were not able to build a strong enough foundation, because you didn't take care of yourself and you poured everything into your child. I know as a parent, you love your kid, and you should, obviously, right? But you have to put on your mask first. Now, the next topic is around paying off debt and investing. Now, this one hits home. This one gets me very, very angry at times. And it's because there are a Dave Ramsey and his camp feels a certain way, and I feel a certain way as someone, as an actual financial advisor who does the math and has to repair certain situations for people who have been paying off debt for decades. Now, the thing is here, paying off debt is a good thing. Okay, that is what makes this difficult and what makes it controversial, because I don't want you staying in debt either, right? I don't think many people say, yeah, stay in debt for a long time. That's not great. But debt and investing exist in two separate camps. They do two different things. And what I mean by that is investing is finite in that 2025 obviously happened one single time. It cannot be repeated. The stock market was up, what was it, 15% or so. It cannot be repeated again. You cannot ever in your life go back and get that 15% again. You cannot go back and renegotiate with time and get that 15% back. If you have a match in your 401k, you cannot go back in time and say, hey, can I take this money, get that 15% from the market, and also go back and get that match? So when you are faced with, should I not invest and go pay everything towards that debt, these are the decisions that you are costing yourself when doing so. Usually, and I would say maybe 7 out of 10 times, I would argue that you should find a way to balance both of those things. And the determining factor is, what percent are we talking about? Okay, what percent are we talking about with the debt? Is there a way that, is it credit card debt? Can we transfer it from card A to a 0% interest card? Because if you're paying 27%, that's terrible, right? Can we take it and move it over here where you're paying 0% for 18 months? And can we really hammer it down? If you are putting 10% in your 401k, okay, that's great, and you're getting a 4% match, that's amazing. Can we go from 10% maybe down to 6%? Give you some extra money, pay down the debt a bit faster. Okay, right? These are some options, as opposed to, hey, let's just stop putting money in your 401k for 3 years while you knock out this debt and the market is up 10%, 7%, 20%. That's 3 years of growth. That is 3 years of matching contributions that you will never get back. And that is extremely, extremely expensive. That is the issue here. That is the thing that's difficult to recover from. It's very difficult to recover from. And obviously it depends on how much debt we're talking about. We're talking about $3,000, okay, that's one thing. You're talking about $30,000? Yeesh, right? Those are the things that make it very controversial, because debt also feels differently. When you are in debt, people feel ashamed by that. It feels like a weight, like a burden, like an anchor around your neck that, hey, I don't feel good when I owe somebody else. When you're not investing, it's like, I don't really think about it every day. But you think about that debt often. You get a statement that says, hey, you owe me. And when you look at it, you see, hey, this balance is growing every single day. When you are not investing in the market, it don't really matter to you. You feel it if you lose money, right? When the market is down, you feel it. But when you're not investing, it's like, I don't really feel it. And that's what makes these two factors not equal at times. But what does happen is when you get closer to retirement, you realize, like, hey, look, I don't have the choice whether I have to go to work or not. You're not thinking about, yeah, I'm debt free. You're like, hey, I got bills I got to pay and I still have to be here. As opposed to if I kept investing for that extra 3 years, extra 4 years, extra 5 years, I could be done by now. And that's the difference. And as a financial advisor, I get to see the differences from the people who continued investing, the people who stayed and got those matching contributions from their employer. There's a difference here. There's an absolute difference here. Again, I'm a financial planner who has helped people to build confidence, build clarity, and build momentum by creating a plan that works in this economy. We can talk at buildingbread.com/call Kev, and that call is 100% free. The next topic that is controversial, and y'all know how I love talking about this topic. It is renting versus buying. Now, there are two ways to look at this. The two ways to look at it, and it always depends. I mean, everything in finance always depends. We've been honest with you. But it always depends on where you are and when you are. We talking about the 1980s? Different question. Talk about the 1990s, different question. But since we are currently in 2026, and you could be watching this at any point in the future, the real question is, are you just looking for a place to live and call it a day, right? Which is obviously the main purpose. But the real question is, are you looking to make the most money by doing so? Now, I will argue, and I am a homeowner, my purpose is not to make money from my house. Now, eventually, if we sell it, and I currently don't have any plans on selling, I'm not here to say, hey, I'm here to make X amount when I sell my house. I'm trying to get real rich. I really don't care. The reason we bought, rates were low. I didn't want to live in an apartment. I got 2 kids. I wanted them to run around and have fun. I wanted them to be able to make as much noise as possible. We have space for instruments. We're teaching our kids piano. I was trying to learn trumpet. I'm trying to make as much noise as I can, right? Without people bothering me. And I wanted to learn how to barbecue. These are all the things that I wanted to be able to do. Okay, and the house afforded me the ability to do that. And we had the money, cash, and opportunity to do so. That's why. When I sell the house, we make money, great. We don't. That's it, right? Now I feel like that is the philosophy most people should have. However, for years, for decades, especially when I was growing up, we're talking about in the 99 and 2000s, the prevailing thought, and if you are of that age, you know exactly what I'm about to say, they said, right, if you are renting, you are throwing away money. Now, if your goal is to make money, right, if I've got $40,000 and I have a choice to put it down, use it as a down payment, or continue renting and just put that in the stock market, my goal is to say, hey, in 30 years, who's going to have the most money? Then renting is better. The math says renting is better. Read the whole sentence, if your goal is to make the most money. Here is why. A house only appreciates on average, right, in the last 30, almost 40 years, the average growth is only about 3 to 4%. That's it. And that is before I include maintenance expenses. I had to trim my trees, $400. I got to get my deck fixed. I had to buy extra stuff to go and get the weeds out of my yard. Like, there are a lot of expenses that I have to spend just to keep the house okay, right? Those things are expensive. If I invested that in the stock market, the average growth is 7%. Yes, rent is going to keep going up. Rent can keep going up as much as you want it to, right? I've done the math over and over and over again. You can look at a chart on the screen right now. Here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, for whatever reason, because they don't want to realize it, is this. Renting is not an asset to you. The stock market is. And if I take that $40,000 plus the 2% or the 3% in maintenance expenses that I have to spend, right? I spent that $400 that could have gone in the stock market. Add that up over 30 years, put that in the stock market. At the end of the day, I'm going to have more money, right, in the market than what I would if I sold the home in 30 years. End of story. That's just it. That is a fact. Even if you include what you think you can have written off, even though the vast majority of people don't even use that tax benefit because they cannot. They cannot use that tax benefit because you have to itemize your taxes to even do so. That's the fact. And that's why it's controversial, because people have their identity tied into homeownership. And homeownership means a lot, especially for people who look like me. I'm not telling you not to buy a house. People always assume that. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just telling you, you want a place to live, do what you want to do. I bought a house, but I didn't do it to make money. There is a difference between the two things. And when people say, well, the renter is just spending all this money and rent is going up every single year and blah, blah, blah. The thing is, when you look at the assets, at the end of the day, on a balance sheet, you look at what you own right? What you own minus what you owe. What does the renter own in this scenario? They don't own the apartment. So what they spent, it's an expense, so it'll go in the budget. But on the balance sheet, which shows your net worth, which shows whether or not you are a millionaire, you're going to look at their investing account and it's going to say $2, $3, $4, $5 million. If you want to make money, the math has said that renting is the way. And there are articles showing that this is what millionaires are currently doing. Now the question is that your route that you want to take? Because you can also be a millionaire homeowner too. That is a route. It's just what's most comfortable to you. Is that the way you want to do it, or do you want to go renting? I'm just showing you alternative paths. Now, there are obviously people who are going to say, well, can't you own a home and also invest? Yes, if you have the income, you can. You obviously can. The difference, and the reason this argument even exists, is because the money that I used to buy the house, I don't have anymore. That's the whole point. The $40,000 I used for down payment is gone. I don't have that and still can invest the $40,000. That's why. So yes, if you have the income, you can do both. Yes, you probably should do both, right? But the difference is once you have used the down payment, it's gone. Once I spent the money on my trees, it's gone. I can also use the maintenance expense on the trees or the water heater and then still use it in the stock. I don't have double. But that's the difference. Do you want to make money or do you just want to live? And I would argue you should just want to live. Do what makes sense for you to just want to live. But if you want to actually see the math, how does the math actually work between the two and which ones make the most sense for you? I've done an entire breakdown on that. If you want to see that video, you want to check that one out right here.